important. All right, our next speaker is an underwater archaeologist from Biscayne National Park. Please welcome Joshua Morano.
How's everybody doing tonight? That's what I like to hear. So, like she said, my name's Josh Morano. I'm an underwater archaeologist, maritime archaeologist at Biscayne National Park. I want to get one thing out of the way right off the bat. You guys see the title. We're in a bar. We're drinking and hopefully getting drunk. That's all I'm going to say. You've been warned. So, that being said, what in the hell? Alright, there we go. We're fixed. Alright, so the question I always get, what is maritime archaeology? I always get that question because it sounds just awesome, but nobody really knows what it is. And to tell you the truth, I don't either. Maritime archaeology, as put by George Bass, who's the founder of maritime archaeology back in 1966, or a very new sciencey profession. I use science very loosely here. But he basically said underwater archaeology is archaeology. Archaeology is a study of human behavior, human beings, through their remnant material culture. Now, maritime archaeology obviously focuses on shipwrecks, anything nautical, so it doesn't necessarily have to be 2,000 leagues under the sea. It could be submerged landscapes, it could be lighthouses, it could be shipwrecks that are underneath the World Trade Center, you name it. If it has something to do with the ocean, I'm interested. That being said, it's got connections. We draft, we work in labs, believe it or not, almost like real scientists. We dive. I do a lot of writing and editing, a lot of the boring stuff. But really, underwater archaeology, yeah, absolutely.
Yeah!
I'm not awesome or anything, but all these are me. So, if you can say anything about archaeology, you can say it's a multidisciplinary effort. We have bioarchaeology, ethnoarchaeology, historians, archivists, just any type of approach you can imagine applying to digging old stuff up. Now, a lot of it's hiking through the woods, interpretation, nice little Smokey the Bear hat, going out and talking to you fine folks, teaching you about this kind of stuff, diving, research, and talking to kids. It's amazing. I actually love using this picture up here. This is me diving on the Blackbeard's Queen Anne's Revenge project. I tell them about this project, how cool it is, how I got $3,000 worth of gear on my face, how I can talk to people underwater. And you know what people ask me? Why is your hammer hanging out? Basically, underwater archaeology in the Federal Service is somewhere in the mix of Indiana Jones, Scuba Steve, and the guy from Office Space. Scuba Steve! Scuba Steve, all right. This is life for me. But in addition to just being an underwater archaeologist, I also have another little bit of experience that makes me a little salty in life. I was a member of the United States Coast Guard for 10 years.
Yeah!
I continue to serve as a second-class bosun's mate at Station Miami Beach, where my primary job involves cutting circles in the ocean, driving around in circles, and making sure I don't hit other guys having a whole lot more fun than I do. So what does all this experience mean? 8 years at college, 4 years in the Federal Service, a couple years in the Coast Guard. It means that I am armed with a very particular set of skills that hopefully for you folks tonight will make me the most interesting man in the world. So let's get into it. This is a day in the life at my office. I work at Biscayne National Park. We are located just south of here. We are 22 miles long, 14 miles wide, established as a national monument in 1968, expanded to a park in 1980. We have 173,000 acres of land, 95% of which is underwater. It's a lot of water. I like to do a lot of underwater archaeology, so I'm proud of it. This is actually outdated. As of 2 weeks ago, there are 158 known archaeological sites. I found a new one last week, so a little bit out of date. What I really want to talk to you guys about tonight is ethnoarchaeology, kind of a little bit talking about how people think about archaeology, how people think about history, and how we can learn about that, because obviously these people are long dead. I can't go and talk to anybody from the 1860s, but I have to learn about them and learn from them and to be able to teach you fine folks about them. So what I'm going to start off is talking about typonymy. Typonymy is the naming of places. Now, does anybody here have a boat? I sure as hell don't. Anybody got a boat? Anybody use Biscayne National Park? Yes. Oh, that's sad. You guys need to go out and experience your national parks. If you do happen to go out to Biscayne National Park, you will notice the name places. Everything on the outside here, Fowey, Brewster, Ledbury, Ajax, Carey's Fort. These are all the names of reefs along the outside, just along the about 3 miles offshore. These are all named for shipwrecks. The dates are on the paper here. These are all wrecks that either occurred, they either grounded and floated off, or they simply wrecked upon the reef. If you go inside, the safety valve, 1927, it was actually named by Colonel Ralph Monroe. He lived right down here in the Grove. He felt that it was a safety valve that let water out. Sands Key, Baki Shoal, Elliott's Key, Adams Key, Totten's Key, all named after people, either surveyors or important people. But you see a trend here. Land is named for people, the reefs are named for shipwrecks. This kind of tells us a little bit about how sailors thought about this area. The reefs were dangerous. They remembered them by the shipwrecks that happened on them. The land, not as important, especially if there was no fresh water. Named after surveyors, much later in fact. Most of all these are before, all the reefs are named after 1850 or so. I'm sorry, before 1850. All the land after 1850. Now there's a couple examples here that I want to touch on, that what archaeology has done to kind of rectify or teach us a little bit more about the archaeological record. Soldier Key up here. A lot of people in the local community think Soldier Key is named after the soldiers who were stationed on that island building the Fowey Rocks Lighthouse in 1878. There are maps, however, with Soldier Key on it, naming Soldier Key all the way back to 1794. No one knows why. I'm assuming there's actually a shipwreck right beside Soldier Key. I'm assuming maybe the survivors made it and they happen to be soldiers, but we don't know. Now I want you guys to remember two other places here, because we're going to talk a little bit more about them. One is HMS Fowey, way up here in the north part. The other one is Caesars Creek. So the HMS Fowey, has anybody ever seen this? Woo! Yeah, Screw Pile Lighthouse, built 1878, 154 feet tall. It is the Eye of Miami. It was built on rocks that supposedly sank the HMS Fowey, a fifth-rate British warship that went down in 1748. In reality, though, that shipwreck was found 8 miles south. So this is an instance where the historical record is different than the archaeological record, and we've been able to prove as much. Another example that I absolutely love bringing up is Black Caesar. Anybody know Black Caesar? All right.
I love that.
It's complete BS.
What?
At least for down here. So the story with Black Caesar is that he was a black Bahamian pirate who operated out of Caesars Creek in South Biscayne Bay, and he would tie his ship up to the backside of Caesars Rock, heel it over, and wait for unsuspecting ships to pass up Hawk Channel, at which point he would cut the line, bounce up, spring out into Hawk Channel, and take the vessel. It's absolute bullshit. It doesn't happen that way. There's actually no physical way that could happen, especially in that location with geophysics ships. However, I do have some good news for the Black Caesar supporters in the crowd. Black Caesar was a real pirate. There was a pirate named Black Caesar who rode with the Blackbeard group. We know this because he was captured in the assault on Blackbeard off Ocracoke Inlet in 1718 and hung in Virginia. The interesting thing, why is Black Caesar associated with Caesars Creek? It used to be called Black Sarah's Creek. Sounds pretty similar, doesn't it? Now, we're here to talk naughty, right? So this is one example of how I actually use this as a research tool, but now we're just going to go off into the deep end here and talk about naughty words. Because everybody likes being on a boat, am I right? This is all about location here. This is a complex wooden 3-hulled gunship. There are many parts of this ship that are funny, especially now. I'm just going to talk about a few. So has anybody ever said to you guys, I need to go to the head? Yes. Yeah, I'm probably going to have to after this talk. You know why they call it the head? Because the head is actually located at the very head of the ship, right beside the beakhead. So enlisted sailors would actually go up here, and they had pretty much an outhouse built in the open on the beakhead, and that was where they would use the bathroom. Pretty simple, right? Officers in military vessels tend to have them in the back, but it's a simple explanation. So when I have to go to the head, everybody now knows what I'm talking about. You have various parts on a vessel that are funny now. The weather deck is actually the deck exposed to the weather up on the top. That's where the term, if you're feeling under the weather, if you're feeling sick, you go under the weather deck. Easy enough. Now there's all kinds of other stuff. The structural components, I'm a ship construction guy. I really like how ships are built and put together. So the frames or ribs, what most people think of as ribs, are actually called futtocks. There's space in between these futtocks that allow the ship to breathe. Water gets in through joints, joinery in the ship components, actually joinery in the sides of the ships called scarves. There's all kinds of different scarves. There's hook scarves, but the one I like to use is butt scarves. All that water that gets in goes through the spaces between the futtocks, goes down to the bilge, then goes through limber holes, is sucked out of the ships to prevent bilge rot. This is all really fun and games, but I'm wearing shorts tonight, and there's a reason. I'm in Miami, because there's absolutely nothing worse than having water run through your futtocks, down to your limber holes, and you get bilge rot because of some leaky butt scarves. All right? Ships were not only complex in the way their hulls were built, but they were also very complex in their sail patterns. So, and this is actually a really famous quote from another famous archaeologist who died, actually. He died in a scuba accident when he was very young. But in any pre-industrial society, the ship, pre-19th century especially, was the most complex machine known to man. And in particular was the sail patterns. Sails, just like the bottom of the ship, have all kind of funny words to them. This sail back here is actually called the spanker. Everybody likes a good spanker. They used all kinds of rigging techniques to lift these sails. These were heavy. The best one I've ever found is one called the snatch block. They also have different types of sails. You have ship rigged, you have schooner rigged. But then you kind of have these half and half sort of things. You've got 3 masts on this ship, and I say this is a ship because this is a 3-masted, square-rigged vessel. But down here you got kind of something almost half-assed, almost a little different. This is called a brigantine. It's also known as a hermaphrodite rig or a jackass brig because it's one half of one ship and one half of the other. Like I said, all kinds of fun stuff. Of course, seamanship. It has seaman in the name, folks. This is going to get good. All these from seamanship, knowing the ropes or learning the ropes. It's actually from sailors learning individual ropes to use and swing on and do the whole thing on the ships. The bitter end, does anybody know what the bitter end is? I have some students I've taught boat driving to in this room, I know. The bitter end is the very end. It's the end you actually work with. So to hold on to the very end is to hold on to the bitter end. 3 sheets to the wind. We talked about how a lot of vessels have 3 masts. The 3 main sheets being loose and flopping in the wind is because of drunken sailors not paying attention to their lines. Giving someone some slack is literally paying out slack on a line. Hand over fist, everybody loves hand over fist. Nothing says I love you like fist. Hand over fist is how you're supposed to actually handle line, hand over fist. If you run the line through your hands, you're actually going to get cut up pretty bad. To batten down the hatches, very literally, talking about getting ready for severe weather or just anything in general, they use actual battens. The wooden pieces that fit in between the slots are actually called battens. And then between the devil and the deep blue sea is another word for between a rock and a hard place. It actually comes from the vessel itself. A lot of times sailors felt that they were literally, the vessel was the only thing keeping them between the devil and the deep blue sea. Now, I said we were going to get naughty here. We're going to talk about a particular line splice called the cunt splice. Now you can read the definition, but the point is that it's actually made by making 2 lines and placing them through the line in a tri-strand braid. This description actually came from 1695, and you can tell the guy who wrote it was kind of pissed off. He kind of acknowledged that these sailors are dirty, kind of no good, you know, of course they name it that. Now, I like pointing this out, but I like even more pointing out the part that you actually have to work to get into, and that's the cunt line. Now, the cunt line is actually the space between each strand on a 5-strand rope. But the thing is with these is that with natural fiber line, they deteriorate. So they rub against each other, kind of against the strands. Salt, sand, dirt will get into them. They'll actually rot out from the inside. So every good sailor knows before you drop the hook in the drink, you got to check for a dirty cunt line. Now, I can't make this stuff up, and just to show you that I am a good archaeologist and historian, I have included a slew of references. You guys can Google it. You don't have to trust me for it. Now, the point I'm really trying to make here is there's an entire another culture associated with the maritime realm that people just, they don't think about necessarily. It's present in the everyday, You know, we have sounds, we have signals, flags. You ever notice those little goofy flags on people's car who want to be like yacht guys? You know, they have these little like 3 or 4, you know, it's usually their kid's name or something. But that's where it comes from. These are actually nautical themed things that kind of infiltrate into our daily aspects of life that remain, but nobody really knows where they came from or why they're significant. But we as a people have always been tied to the ocean. We've been tied to maritime commerce, and this is just how it kind of permeates through. Now, up here is something called raising the jack, or raising the Union Jack. Everybody likes raising a jack, right? Jacks actually go back to the people, and that's why I keep trying to get back to is the people. So Union Jack actually referred to the actual Union flag, the Great Britain, but jacks in general referred to the old tall ship sailors. You could always tell them apart in a bar because they were drunk, like I hopefully will be after this. They stumbled around, they carried knives in the open, they carried these little goofy handkerchiefs. You guys ever seen these? You know the story about those? Sailors would actually wear this because they would actually, they had longer hair, particularly in the 19th century, and they would use spar grease or oil or some kind of tar to grease their hair back when they went on shore. Now this would drip, you know, just like the Guidos of Jersey Shore, right? I can say that, I'm a Guido, I can do that. But so they slicked the hair back, and then they were worried about the tar getting on their uniform, so they would wear their handkerchief in this distinguished way, and it was so prevalent that even the old Cracker Jack guy, as racist as he sounds, wears it to this day. Ships, the people on ships are very interesting. Ships are microcosms of the societies that create them. This is particularly well documented in the military realm. It's equally true in the merchant realm, but I like to point out with the military side of things, how many different people, how many different job types are on board a ship, and what a complex machine this thing really was. This is a list of all the different types of enlisted naval ratings. And you'll notice they actually do little like 2-letter acronyms for a lot of these. QM would be a quartermaster, MK would be a mechanic. In case you were wondering, bosun's mate, what I am is a BM. Now that's not a bowel movement. A lot of people think that. But in case you were wondering, it stands for bad motherfucker. Because that's not a rate. So just some slang, quick slang originating from life aboard ship. Loose cannon, very obvious, a dangerous individual, just like a loose cannon on board. Son of a gun is used to just kind of a, you know, son of a bitch sort of thing, but that's actually used to describe an individual who was believed to be conceived on board a vessel, usually by the woman on top of the gun. It could also be referred to someone giving birth because of the percussion of a gun. Either way, it's derogative, so use it freely. Shake a leg is to, you know, to hurry up today. The reason that came about was sailors occasionally on shore leave were allowed to bring women of the evening on board. So if they were being told to hurry up and get them off, they were told to hurry up in their hammocks, and you would literally see the leg shaking from underneath the hammocks. So, yeah, giggity, right? 3 square meals a day is pretty common. That's 3 hot in a cot, right? Well, the reason it's 3 square meals a day is because particularly British sailors would actually eat their meals off of 3 square wooden plates. Hence 3 square meals. To bail out is to literally bail out a boat, usually with a bucket. Slush fund, extra money, right? Slush fund actually came from the salted pork grease that was left over after rations that the ship's cook would save, bring back to port, and sell to make extra money for the crew. As the crow flies, that was a common practice to release a bird, have them shoot straight out, and if they found land, they wouldn't return. The sailors would then sail in that direction. Field day? Who doesn't remember field day? I hope. If you were born within the past 30 years, I hope you guys remember having field days in school?
Oh yeah!
That was fun, right? It's a complete opposite in the military now. It means cleaning up everything. So field days suck. Freezing the balls off a brass monkey is actually a misnomer. That's something that people think of when they think of cannonballs stacked on a deck. Water would freeze to them, they would literally pop off. That's not true because that's not how cannonballs are stacked on a ship. You can prove that archaeologically. So that's one that's interesting in that. It's bullshit. Mayday is actually a French term that has been bastardized and used for purposes now. And then Shanghai would be like some of you fine folks here who have a little too much to drink, end up getting tied up tonight, thrown into the back of a truck, and put on board a naval ship. Now this is Miami, so you probably won't be put on a ship. You might be put under a ship, but the same idea applies. again, my ultimate goal here is to get you guys kind of thinking about the people. These people are no longer around to talk. They don't make 17th century shipwrecks anymore. They don't make 19th century agricultural establishments. It's our job to preserve these memories, and that's part of my job, is to take what